Grandpa Dave here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some life lessons. Stick around, you might learn something. Here we are, another video. I understand a lot of you liked that last one with my wife. Guess what? There's a part 2 coming out eventually. Evidently we discussed it and the best stuff was left out, so stay tuned for that. This one's a little bit about life's lesson, cause and consequence. Is the oven hot, is it not? Touch it, burn your hand off. You're one-handed now, but at least you know it's hot. You shouldn't touch it. So that's kind of what this is about. I was 5 years old. And I probably had some cause and consequence before that. This is the one I remember. You start getting a little dexterity with the fingers, and you could start doing amazing things. So I got this thing, I could do it, and I'd raise this finger up, and I'd raise the other one. You all know the symbol, so I'm not going to show you. Well, to me, it looked like an elephant. I mean, the trunk and 2 big ears. I was pretty proud of it. And I'd doing it all the time. I thought it was pretty cool. No one said anything. Well, I went to the post office. 5-year-old kid. And there's this kid that come out. And a big kid. He's like, I'm 5. He's probably like 13, 14 on this big bike. And I was doing it. And he seen me doing it. He thought he thought I was doing something to him. He got mad. He was upset. Did you flip me the bird? A what? Did you flip me the bird? It's an elephant. I'm learning to make an elephant with my fingers. See it? I'll show you. Look, that's the trunk, and these are the. You flip me the bird. No, it's this. Well, evidently, that's in some circles in the world. That's a bad thing. Like it's almost next to knocking off your Uncle Festus. Well, he was pretty angry at me, and he gave me an earful or two, and that's when I learned it was called a bird. Now, pardon me, but I don't see a bird in that. I guess with a stretch of an imagination, it could be a long beak with 2 eyes? I don't know. Later on, I thought it was just a symbol of one's IQ. But that was a lesson learned. I learned not to show my elephant to anybody because that it could have been scary, or my birdie or whatever you want to call it. Well, one of the big things when I was growing up in the neighborhood and I had my bike, nothing was really more cool than a bike with the real good sound to it, And kids would use playing cards and whatever they could find, and you'd steal your mom's laundry pins, the ones they put on the laundry line to dry the clothes. And you would put cards on it, and some kids would have different kinds of cards. Some kids would have trading cards, the kind with the bubble gum, stuff like that. And you put it between the spokes of the front tire and some in the back. When you go, it goes, and you sound like you're really cool, Well, I'd learned that my parents had this one special deck that they played pinochle with it. They were really proud of that pinochle deck. And I was intrigued with that deck because, well, it was stiff. It was really stiff material. And to make a really good sound, it's important, the stiffer the card, the better the sound, okay? Now, my mom was constantly complaining about missing clothespins off the line. I don't know where they went. I only used like 4 or 5 a day. It's not like I was going through using 1,000 of them. Anyway, she could afford to buy it. She had that account at the store. You remember that? So she didn't need to worry about it. So I took this deck and I went out there with some friends and we were having a, man, so I'd let everybody use these cards. They were pretty cool because they made a really good sound. They were really stiff. Almost to the point it stopped your bike. That's how stiff they were. They were really good. Man, it made a cool sound. Well, the day ended up and I decided, well, I better put them back, missing about half a dozen cards because, they do get ruined, torn and other things. And I replaced the cards. Well, I was soon to learn that that was a bad idea. Evidently, these cards were important and lucky. I don't know. I didn't know cards were lucky, but they were their lucky cards, and well, they weren't that lucky, were they? So I learned a lesson out of that. Don't take your parents' pinochle cards. Remember that. It's an important safety tip there, okay? Well, these are things that you do, you know. You try things out. Now, there's people out there in the world that they keep walking into brick walls. You ever heard of people like that? They walk into a brick wall. There's a guy walking into a brick wall one day, and I stopped in and says, well, why'd you walk into the brick wall? He said, well, if I keep doing it enough, I'll make a door. Good luck. 3 years later, I come by, and he's still walking into the wall. He says, you haven't made that door yet. He says, no, but I'm getting close. Last month, the chip fell out. Well, what he didn't know is this piece of his tooth down there on the ground. Anyway, that's just one of those things you need to learn from your experiences. Now, as a kid, I wasn't very good at talking. I'm still not that good. But, if I take my teeth out, we can really have a good conversation. You'll wonder what the heck I'm saying. But I couldn't say words right. And I love movies with scary things in it, Frankenstein monster. I mean, I watched that. It scared me all the time. The Wolf Man scared me. The Mummy scared me. And all those shows scared me. Well, there's one guy in one of these shows, these horror movies, horror with 2 R's. Well, one time my parents had gone somewhere and they put my brother-in-law and sister in charge of us. They were staying with us. And we were in the car and they were taking us to Logan for some reason or other. I assumed to get a hamburger or something like that. My sister, being herself, was being a little stinker, or I was being a stinker. In the interest of this is my story, sorry sis, she was the stinker. And I called her a whore. You are such a whore. Well, that's my brother-in-law and sister had heard something completely different, and they were accusing me of saying a word. I didn't know what it meant. Now, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together. One starts with a W, and the one I was saying starts with an H. But I was having a hard time getting those 2 R's out there, so they'd taken it wrong, and so I called my sister something that I didn't know what it was. Later on, I found out what it was, and it made it even funnier. But because, the opposite things are funny. So I'm not calling you that, sis, okay? You're still scary. Anyway, she's cute. Anyway, that was that one, but oh my gosh, I tell you, there's a lot of things I tried. Man, I tried a lot of things. I remember my parents bought this new house, or built the new house up here not up here, over in Providence. Had this really cool backyard. And the hillside went that way, and you had the creek there and the creek there, and we're going to talk about why I talk the way creek, canyon. We'll talk about that later. Not on this video. And, well, we might. So back in the back part, there was a grassy area with the water coming from the creek. And the trees were big, and they had these vines that grew off of them to the point where they looked like these monsters you see on like Lost in Space and stuff, little shag thing. Whoa, I actually thought they were monsters for a while. They're pretty scary at twilight. Well, I was rather fond of the Tarzan movies, and most of you probably I've seen those. I'm kind of a Johnny Westmuller fan. I can't do what he does with the yell, but I'm just, as you recall from the last videos, I had a cough, but I don't anymore. So anyway, we're my dad, my mom, my parent, my dad, my mom, and my parents. That should be a blooper show. Anyway, and my aunt and their kids and other kids, and they're just like a whole bunch of people, and they're having a fire and weenie roast and stuff like that. And just up above the creek, there was a bunch of vines, and I was playing with the vines, and I found one that was pretty strong. And I swung across the creek, and some of my cousins were doing it, and they thought it was really fun. So I thought I was going to show them up. So I grabbed that vine, I went clear up as high as it would go, and I swung, a mighty swing. You seen George of the Jungle? You know, the one with Brendan Fraser? I came across, and there was everything blowing across. I come across, and I just got to the creek, and I went swoosh right in the water. Now, when certain things happen in life, the first thing that I do is I get up and make sure no one's looking. In this case, everybody was looking, and they actually found humor in that. I couldn't see what was funny about it, because now I was soaking wet. Now, the new house was still being built, so my clothes were down 3 blocks down in the old house. And it was I don't know about you, but I don't like wet Levi's, you know. Wet Levi's just, they ain't cool. Well, they told me to walk home. You ever walked home in wet Levi's? Not a good idea. Anyway, that was a lesson learned. Don't trust any vines. How Tarzan does it is beyond me. Yeah. Well, eventually we ended up tearing all those out, burning it up and cleaning the trees and stuff. And that was the end of the vines. Well, you learn things and you try things out, and sometimes they work and most of the times they don't. And if they don't work, you just find a new way to do it. It's kind of like a bomb, defusing a bomb. They say there's only one way to defuse a bomb. I wholeheartedly disagree. There's 2 ways. One way ends up in success, and the other ends up with fanfare. Of course, that'll be the last time you do a bomb, but one's more exciting than the other. Therefore, I kind of like, trying to do things the wrong way first. There's a little fun in that, you know. Well, you get up in age and you start doing some stuff. I get up in my teenage years, I got a driver's license. I'm pretty cool with my car. Now, we talked a little bit about my car with the dating episode. And it was a pretty cool car. It really was. Now, when you drug Maine and Logan and you go around Pete Spudnut on the north end, when you come out, there's usually a bunch of kids parked on the side of the road talking and whatnot. And I used to like to come off there and I just scream that engine and I pop the clutch and it'd burn out, and then I'd slam it into second and it'd burn again. Sometimes if you're really lucky and the wind's blowing in the right direction and there's enough snow on the ground, you can actually do it a third time, in third gear. So this one particular time, there's 3 of us in the car and we're just going up and down the street, just having fun. And we come out of Pete's, and there's more kids on the side of the road for some reason. I don't know what was going on. Nobody informs me if anything going on in the valley. I just find out, evidently I wasn't popular or something, I don't know. So I come out of Pete's, and I was going to really give everyone a show. I was, man. I wrapped that sucker up. I didn't have a tachometer, but I bet I had it close to blowing the pistons out of the top. And I popped that clutch, and it did a mighty screech, and then there was a little bit of smoke, and it was pretty cool, and I'm going to show them what happens when I pop it into second. And I shoved that gear down, and it wee scream, and I realized I'm holding the stick shift in my hand. It had come loose. Evidently, Ford Motor Company, pay attention, please. There's a little nub, not that high up, from the little boot. A little nub, a little rubber nub. And I'm holding a stick shift that's got this metal cup. Now, if you've ever milked cows, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like the milker end, but a little bit smaller. And everybody on the street is just dying laughing. My friends are actually now on the floor. As you recall, my friends are cowards and they always run and hide when I'm in trouble. So everybody was looking at my face and I was going, hey, so I drove it with that little nut and I went home. Yeah, I didn't want to drag me in the rest of the day. Well, I later had a friend that he built me a new stick shift for it, and it made it work. The only problem is when you wanted to go in reverse, you had to pull a stick shift off, turn it around, put it back in so you can go into reverse. A little anti-theft thing, you know, if you really think about it. Because if you stole my car, you would know how to get into reverse. So that was kind of a plus. Well, later on, we started doing this little habit. We'd go to places and we would test drive cars. Now, it's people, or places, you know, as long as you had a driver's license, they let you test drive everything. You know, I test drove a Corvette. I test drove a very nice Camaro. Oh, man. Whoever bought that was in trouble because I burned that clutch. Anyway, that's not what I should be talking about. I'd be talking about, this is about making mistakes. Now, we've learned the mistake about throwing back and the stick shift comes out. Lesson learned. Next lesson coming up. Now, we cut some school that day. Actually, can't remember, I think we had 6 periods in the day and we cut 4th period. So we went down to this particular car lot that was on the south end of Logan, between Smithfield and Logan. And they were on the south end. I think it was Axtell Chevrolet's used car lot. And they had this really cool truck. I think it was like a 71 short bed. And it was a 4-wheel drive. Very nice looking truck. And you know, I wasn't really serious that I was going to buy it, but we wanted to go test it out. Now, it was winter, so there was some snow on the ground. And you know, he gave me the keys and we piled in the truck and we drove into Smithfield. And I'm thinking, this is 4-wheel drive. I want to test this 4-wheel drive out. I want to try this thing. I mean, it drove good. It was great. You know, it's just a stick shift. Nice little 4-speed, you know. Well, actually 3, because you don't go into first. That's compound low. But so we're driving. We go up to Smithfield Canyon, right up the top. You know, where they stopped plowing. I said, all right. So I had my friends get out and we locked the hubs in. They're locked in. Okay, we're good. Put it into 4-low. Kicked it in and went. And we got about 10 feet off the road and got stuck. So I'm trying to get going. It's terrible. We got out and looked. And the back wheels were moving, but the front weren't. I'm getting a little concerned. So we're sitting there looking at it and trying to figure out if we'd locked them in right. What did we do wrong, you know? About 10 minutes later, I thought to look. Evidently, the prior owner had removed the front drive shaft. It was not a 4-wheel drive. It was a 2-wheel drive now. Oh, it could have been a 4-wheel drive that had a front drive shaft, of course. So we were up there stuck. And we were digging and trying to push and digging it and pushing. 4 hours later. 4 hours. We got it out. And the sun was starting to set. I was a little concerned that the guy might have been upset. We pulled in. He was a little upset. He said, where the heck were you? I says, test driving it, and guess what? What? This truck doesn't have a front drive shaft. I got stuck testing out to see how the 4-wheel drive worked. Now, in his mind, he's probably thinking we stole the front drive shaft. Why we would steal it, beyond me. Well, it took a little talking, but he finally just sent us on the way, and I was pretty sure I didn't go there to test drive cars anymore. You know. So, lesson learned. Make sure that it's got a front drive shaft if it's a 4-wheel drive. Check. Well, another incident now, that in that time Nissan was Datsun, and the Datsun dealership was on the north end of Logan on the south side of the highway, and they had this I think Volkswagen dealership, Morris I think was the company. They had their little dealership there, and they had this really nice looking little Hustler pickup truck. It was a blue one. It was kind of I don't know what kind of blue. Not really baby blue. It was a good looking color. And it was 2-wheel drive. And I hadn't test drove a new car before. We were in looking at it, just looking. I had no intention to really test drive it, but the dealer was pushy. He says, you really ought to test drive this. I said, well, okay, you're going to push me to it. Give me the keys. Oh, yeah, I got to test drive it, but we didn't go along. He was in the passenger seat. All right, so I pulled on Main Street, turned down on the first block, come across, come back over, and pull back in. He says, what'd you think? I said, yeah, it's a good looking truck. I'd probably buy it, but if it had a sunroof and a tonneau cover, I don't know how to pronounce that. There's a little Wellsville in me, so if I mispronounce, that's Wellsville's fault. And if it had some fender flares and a set of mag rims and some bigger tires, I would probably buy it. Really? Well, I probably would. I don't know. It just kind of depends, what the price is and stuff. Okay, well, so we went our way, and I was kind of like, okay, that's it. That's the end of that story. So a week goes by. Probably about 2 weeks, I believe. Something like that. And I was getting ready for school, and the phone rang. And Dad said, David, it's for you. I answered it. It was this guy, and he says, hey, this is so-and-so from the Datsun dealership, and your truck's ready. You can come in and pick it up anytime. My truck? Yeah, the little Hustler. It's ready? Yeah, we got all that work done that you asked for. Shit. Okay, I'm a kid, first off. Second off, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know the law. I didn't recall ordering it. I just says if it had, I would consider it. Third off, I had just got a checking account. So I had my first checking account. And my first check was 001. So I went to school and I fretted all day about it. That's the first time I wanted to stay in school. At the end, bell went off. And I went, oh, okay. So I had a friend of mine go home with me, and we pulled into the dealership to look at it. The knothead dealer guy had taken this little Hustler, a brand new truck, had put fender flares on it, had put wide tires with mag rims, had cut in a sunroof, and now had added a tonneau cover. It was gorgeous. It really was. But it was also $6,900 out the door. Now, as I recall, I had probably $31, maybe $32 in the checking account. Now, I'm thinking that some contract had been made, not to my knowledge, but evidently I figured, I am in deep doo-doo. Somehow, I had ordered this thing without really knowing it. Now, I am in trouble. So I told the guy, I says, I'm really going to have to go talk to my dad about getting a loan for this. And he says, well, we got it done for you. And I said, we needed something to hold it for you. And I says, like what? And he says, well, I don't know, what can you do? And I said, so I wrote him a check for $6,900 and something and so much cents. And I said, do not cash that check, it's not good. I got to talk to my dad and get a loan to pay for this. And I'm scared. I am scared. And I'm in the car with my friend, and we driving down Logan. I said, I don't know what to do. There's no way. I don't know what to do. So I dropped my friend off and then stopped at the shop because I had to do a little work, after school work. My dad says, get in the office. Okay, I've evidently done something wrong because he's kind of ticked. So I went in, sat down. He'd shut the door. Now, you're really in deep doo-doo when he shuts the door, okay? Just FYI. So he shut the door and he says, let me see your checkbook. Here. Did you write a check for $6,900 and I can't remember the exact amount. Well, here's what happened. And you wrote him a check. Yeah, why did you order it? I says, I didn't. I just says if it had it, I'd consider it. He says you ordered it. And I says, I didn't. Anyway, push come to shove, and he kicked me out of the office. Told me to shut the door as I walked out, and I shut the door. 45 minutes later, he says, all right, get your butt home. We'll talk when we get home. I thought, okay. So one of three things probably happened. Number one, the sheriff's going to come get me for writing a bum check. That's a felony, by the way, for that much money. Number two, he's worked out a deal with them, and I'm going to have to pay it off, which is good because I now get the truck. Or number three is probably the option that's going to happen. Well, if you guess number three, you're correct. He come home and he says, all right, tomorrow after school, you're going into that dealership and you're talking to that man and you're going to get your check back. Okay. So again, another long day of school. This time I couldn't get a friend to come in with me, so I went in alone. And I walked in and there's the guy, and he wasn't real nice. Not as nice as he was the first day or the second day. And he says, I guess you want your check, huh? I said, yeah. He says, I told you it wasn't any good. I had to go talk to my dad about getting a loan to pay for it. He says, well, you're just lucky that I know your dad and I talked to your dad, or you'd be going to jail. He gave me the check and kicked me out. Well, needless to say, lesson learned, don't be stupid. That was stupid in several ways. Number one, I wasn't liable. Number two, I gave him a check, which made me liable to a point. Number three, I was plain stupid. All right, lesson learned. We go back in time a little bit, and you know, one of the fun things about being a kid is sleepovers. Now, sleepovers are very fun, especially when you're outside. You would sleep in the backyard and you would have all this area, all the stars you can look up, and you can sneak off and do all kinds of stuff. Well, one of the things that we would do as a group was nigger knocking. Well, that's a dirty word for some people, but that's what it was called. So we'll just call it doorbell ditching. What you would do is, for those unwashed out there that don't know the nuances of this high-skilled thing, is you would pick out your target. You would make sure you have various ways to get away. You would hit said doorbell and beat it. I mean, you'd run. Try to be hidden before they came out. So it's about 1 o'clock, maybe 1:45. And there's this particular guy down the block. Nice guy. We all liked him and stuff. He's, you know, we knew him, and he was a teacher in church. And he had a wife and a couple of kids, and just a nice guy. Well, we were just trying to thinking, he'd be fun to hit. You know, all the door lights are off. This will be fun because it'll take him a long time to hit the doorbell, and by that time we'll be gone, hidden in the shadows a mile away, and get away with it. So, you know, I'm the dummy. I'll go push the button. Yeah, I did. My friend stood back at a nice safe distance, snickering. This is going to be so funny. So I snuck up. I got up on the porch and I hit the doorbell. Bang! Lights go on. I booked it. So right next to their property was a field. And then the street went this way. Street, and then street up to our house. Field, and it had a ditch. And it was a deep ditch, about that deep. It was a good sized deep, but it was all weedy this time of year. So, you know. And my friends, they were out in the field somewhere hiding already. And I ran and jumped into there, and I found the ditch and laid flat in the ditch. So now I'm fleeing the ditch, and I hear him come out, and he's yelling, "You kids! Blah, 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 something, something." Next thing I know, I can hear pew, 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 footprints. Now, okay, now I'm in a little bit of trouble. He's coming. He probably seen me. Next thing you know, I'm laying in the ditch. Okay, so I can see a little bit. There's a street light just over here, so I can see him, but he can't see me and the other guys because of the shadows of the plants. Next thing I know, he steps towards me. Okay, he's got to be able to see me, but evidently he's smart enough to know there's a ditch there because he steps over me because I could see up his nose as he walked past me. He had a booger. Not really. I thought that was funny. Anyway, he walked past me and he's out there yelling, trying to beat the bush and stuff. Didn't find my friends. One of them booked it and ran off. But he knew there was other of us in the field. So next thing you know, he steps over me again and goes over to the street, and there's some rocks about like this size. And he starts throwing them into the field. And he rolls this gangoza, a big gangoza. Rolls it, and it rolls up over the ditch and smacks me in the knee. And I reacted and kind of moved up a little bit. So, ha! He grabbed me. Knew who it was. Get in here, Mr. Watkins. He dragged me into his house, where his wife was sitting. Took me into the kitchen and said, so, this is about the 5th time you have hit our house at this time of night. We were waiting for you. And I says, I didn't hit you before. He says, tell me another one. I says, honestly, we're having a sleepover. We're doing this, and we just happened to hit you on the way home. That's all. He says, I don't believe you, but I'll have to take your word for it at this point. If it happens again, I'm going to be talking to your parents. And sent me on my way. So lesson learned. Doorbell ditching is okay, but there is evidently a curfew where it's okay and it's a felony. Okay. Check. Lesson learned. Well, a few years before that, same scenario. We're out there sleeping. There's 3 of us. We're just bored spitless. I couldn't sleep and they couldn't sleep. And I said, let's go do something. So we went out and prowled around town. Now at that time, my parents' window's here. And the grass goes down a slope and then there's a creek. And then on the other side there's a bunch of trees at that time. Now the trees were taken out over time, but they were kind of bushy and stuff. So, good hiding areas and stuff for when you're throwing snowballs, FYI. One of the good things, there's something you should learn. There's something called cover and there's concealment. Now cover is when they throw a binocular rock at you, it'll stop the rock. That's cover. Concealment is just they throw the rock into the bush and hit you in the forehead. They can't see you because it conceals you, but you're not safe from the rock. So we're out having a good time and we're coming back, and I don't know, it's probably 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And we're not exactly being quiet, but at the same time we're not being real noisy because my dad and mom slept with the window open. Well, next thing I know, porch light comes on. We're just at the ditch level, the creek, and we're in the bushes, and out comes my dad. He's got a flashlight and something else in his hand. And I'm a little concerned now because I noticed that something else in his hand is his little pistol he used to keep. So my dad thought that somebody was casing his home and going to break in or something. So he came out with his flashlight. So we're hiding in the grass, and we're hiding really well and really slow. Do you know you can hold your breath for a long time? You can. Especially when you're going to die. Now I was thinking several things. I said, Dad, I should have said, Dad, that's me. We're just out walking around. I didn't dare because I thought I'd get killed. And I didn't dare move because I thought I'd get killed. So you can see the dilemma, correct? He come through and he's walking, shining his light, going across stuff. And the gun was pointed down. He didn't point it at anything. Dad was pretty good. He taught firearms and stuff. And he does this and that, and went back into the house, satisfied that nobody was there. Yeah, we were hiding. Well, we didn't dare move for like 45 minutes, it seemed like. We didn't dare move. We wanted to make sure when that light went out, he was sound asleep. Because knowing my dad, he was probably sitting there with the window, with the lights out, staring, waiting for somebody to stir. So, lesson learned, don't sneak out with my parents' window open. Lesson learned. Nothing happened on that one. Okay? That's just one of those things. Now we all know about some of the other lessons that I've learned, some of the stories. Like footballs. They're not very good explosives. And not good flamethrowers. We know that. Burning bugs off of sunscreens, Not a good idea. We know how that ended, don't we? Pop fights. Great fun, sticky as heck, but not a good idea when you have to pay the pauper later. Especially the pop dad. You know, pop fight, pop. Yeah, so, you know, there's a lot of lessons to learn. And I learned them for you. I went through this so that I could tell you what not to do. I did this out of the goodness of my heart. I tested these things out, and I can tell you when they work, and I can tell you when they don't work. Thank you. Talk to you later. Now, another lesson after I'd ended the first set that I wanted to tell you about, and it's an important lesson, by the way. Back when I was a kid, there was a lot of neighbor kid activity in our backyard. And I felt that I was the policeman for the family. As a matter of fact, I told my dad that I should have a badge and that I could walk up and down. I actually really did tell him that. He didn't think that was a very good idea. Well, I kept finding these pots everywhere, up on the hillside. Little pots with these little plants growing in it. And they were about that tall. And I'd come up on it, and I thought it was just some stupid girls goofing off. And I'd kick them over and bust them out, and then I'd find another one, I'd kick it over. And this went on for a good part of the first part of the summer. Well, these plants are starting to get bigger as I come across. You know, they're just ugly little plant. And I was knocking them over, and just one day I had this friend of mine, you know, remember the accident with the wheelbarrow and the wagon. His mother's the one that did the first aid, but his sister is, I believe, married at that time to a deputy sheriff. And we're up there goofing off, playing around. He says, "Hey," I says, "look at these stupid things. I've been kicking them all. Some of these stupid little neighbor girls are planting them. I'm just kicking them over." He says, "That's marijuana." "It's not marijuana." And he says, "Yeah, that's marijuana." And he says, "They're all over the hillside. I've been kicking them over half the summer." "Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it's not mine. I don't want to go to jail for it or anything like that." He says, "That's all right. I'll talk to my brother-in-law." So he had him come up, and he come walking up with us. So it kind of felt cool, you know. Us kids walking up there with the deputy sheriff. And, "It's right here." "Yeah, it's marijuana, all right. You're not planting them?" To "No, I've actually been kicking them over. I thought they were just little kids playing around." He said, "All right. And do you have any idea who they belong to?" I said, "No, no idea." And then, you know, he's kind of, in the meantime, another deputy showed up, come through the Vons Park area. They're looking around, and they said that they're going through, and then they found over this tree, somebody had a nice little planting shovel and thing like that. "Ah, a little pot growing field, do we, huh? Oh, cartel thing, huh?" "Probably not." I think it was a local kid, and I think I knew who it was. He's deceased now, so I'm safe to tell about this. So he said, "All right, so we're going to take care of this." "All right. Just leave him alone. Don't do anything more. Don't say anything to anyone." And here I am doing a video to the whole world, right? We're talking 50-something years ago. So anyway, later on that evening, I'm with this friend and another friend, and we're down at his house, and his mother comes and says, "Hey, do you hear that they're going to do a stakeout of those things?" "Oh, that's cool. I wish I could see it." Just, "Well, you know, it's probably okay if you guys want to go be a part of it." "Really?" Yeah, just get dark clothes on so you don't get seen." "Okay." "Why not? She said I could. And she's a scary lady, so I'll do what scary lady says." So we got our black clothes, went up to my house, and I got all my black clothes on. We went out the back and started creeping up the backyard very carefully. We got about halfway up in the backyard, Next thing you know, there's like 5 flashlights on us. Stop it! Oh, man, that wasn't cool. Evidently, that wasn't okay for us to go up there, and evidently we ruined their stakeout. And evidently, I put it out there, they actually thought that we were probably going up there for other reasons, and we weren't. Then he said that his mother, anyway, got us out. So, lesson learned, don't get into a police stakeout. Evidently, that's not a good thing. So, lesson learned. Okay, now I finally told you all the stories. Now, finally, I can stop this and pick my nose off camera. Okay? Have a good day. Grandpa Dave with a little wisdom for you. You know, I went shopping the other day and ran into somebody I hadn't seen for a while. We did the formalities. How you doing? Pretty good. You? Good, good. Hey, you're looking pretty good. I says, really? He says, yeah. What's your secret? Aren't you like 72? I says, no, I'm not that old, but I'll tell you what my secret is. You know, I stopped drinking coffee in the morning. He says, really? He says, yeah. I says, I started drinking orange juice. He says, really? And I says, yeah, I went to the doctor. He was saying how much more happy I looked and everything. And I says, well, I quit coffee and I'm drinking orange juice. He says, okay, well, that's the vitamin C and the natural ingredients and stuff. I says, really? I thought it was the vodka. Grandpa Dave out.